Okay, I think we are pretty much ready to start. So welcome everyone. Glad you all can be here for our closing ceremony. This closing celebration is something I really like because I really like the idea of, just taking a breath after this, very busy week and, reflecting back on it and, all the stuff that we did, during the week and, which is a reflection of what we've been doing all semester or maybe all year in terms of research that has been done, projects that have been done, all these student works that have been done. So it's really just a nice time to do this. We're all so busy, and so busy that there are still some Petersheim events that are still going on right now, and traditionally math has their events pretty much right now, and I think psychology is also still running something either now or even after this. But this is a good time for at least some of us to get together and, do what I was suggesting, just take stock of what you've done and, feel good about the accomplishments. This is the 30th annual Petersheim. And so, what that says to me is that now we're talking about this on the order of decades, right? Much like my sleep debt is on the order of decades. So, it's really just something really special. And we have a special lineup tonight of people who are here to speak with us. I'm going to start first with Reverend Pritchett, who I don't. Oh. Okay, Reverend's not here at the moment. So we had Reverend Pritchett for opening prayer, but we might have him for a closing prayer. But we could still start with opening remarks. And for our opening remarks, we have Dean Jonathan Farina here. Dr. Farina is a professor in the English department. He's also the dean of our College of Arts and Sciences. And I'll turn the podium over to him, and he'll have a few words for us.
Thank you, and thank you, Dr. Toll. So it's an honor to be here every year. An exhausting week, as Dr. Toll mentioned. I happen to be in the middle of this week. I was down in Washington, D.C. for 24 hours to meet with some donors, some alumni. And one of them was a class of 1963 graduate of the Department of Math at Seton Hall. And he was telling me a story about his undergraduate experience, which was a professor from the Ukraine who worked at Seton Hall for many years named Dr. Andruski. And this man was telling me that Dr. Andruski would just sit with him for hours at the end of the day working, and eventually they did an independent project together. And he spent all summer doing research in mathematics, and that's what he remembers 50 years later now, more than 50, 60 years later. He went on to get a master's in engineering and become a satellite engineer for the CIA and then for a couple of contractors. And he is still was talking on deep mathematics with me about Dr. Andruski this long time ago. And so it was perfect because I started telling him about Petersheim and all the work that our students do at Petersheim. And what's resonated most with me now this week is how many student projects, I've talked to them about their posters, and the conclusion of the conversation is about how they were wrong. Students had a hypothesis with their faculty. It turned out very differently than they expected. And all the students who talked about that had a positive spin on it. We're like, so we had to go back and figure out what we misunderstood or why our thesis didn't work. And to me, that was two things. One is it's real science, right? Real science is not about knowing what you're supposed to get when you start an experiment and then rigging the experiment to find that answer. That's how I did high school science in my labs, right? You'd know what it was supposed to be, roughly approximate your data. That's real science when you find out that something doesn't match what you know. It also resonated with something that another alumnus told us in the fall, Bob Copeland, for those of you who went to the genetics lecture in the fall. He talked about one of his greatest discoveries was when he had a theory about how a certain chemical process happened, or a biological process. It was wrong. Their data came out differently. And he said, instead of moving on to a different hypothesis, they said, let's understand the mechanism underlying this process and figure out what we're misunderstanding about it. And that's what led to the cure, ultimately, of a variant of lymphoma. And so first thing I wanted to say was to applaud people for willing to be wrong and for doing the real science to find out where we have gaps in our knowledge and going back and understanding it. Because to me, that's the step from classroom learning to real learning, is when you're not just trying to get an A, you're not just clocking out at the end of the semester when you turn in your paper, but it's real thinking and ongoing thinking. So kudos to those groups who got it wrong. Kudos also to those who got it right. And there's been a great variety of really interesting work. So we're here to sponsor more of that. We encourage you to keep up experimenting and to be creative. The other great observation was the collaboration. So there were so many projects that included someone from computer science and chemistry and biology, or two people who wanted to be doctors but ended up doing a project in computer science or math. And that kind of crossover is really heartening too, because every graduate you talk to doesn't stick to one field but end up working the sciences collaboratively. So I want to thank Dr. Lopez and Dr. Chang once again for co-chairing a great team and running a great week of celebrating our research. And I'm going to thank all the students and faculty involved because it was a great week.
Thank you, Dr. Farina. Okay, in case you didn't know, the schedule program that you see on the screen here is available on these screen sheets of paper on the front here, so please feel free to take one or take one on the way out. What is on the back side of the green flyers in the front is a little short bio on our guest keynote speaker for today's ceremony, so just to point that out to you. But next what I want to do is introduce someone who will introduce you to someone else. So we had some changes of the schedule around. So originally, Dr. Jose Lopez was going to give us some opening remarks, so we changed things around a little bit, and he's going to do the introduction. Dr. Jose Lopez is the director of the Office of Grants and Research Services. He's also a full professor in the Department of Physics here at Seton Hall, and so he's also the co-chair, as was mentioned by Dr. Farina, the co-chair of the steering committee for the Petersheim committee. So I'll just step aside now, let Dr. Jose Lopez take over.
So when Dr. Tall told me that we could get Dean Farina to do the opening remarks, he said, "Can I bump you?" And I said, "Absolutely, for the dean." Absolutely. So thank you, Ed. Thank you, Jonathan, for all you're doing and for being here with us and celebrating our students. I'm looking for the comments I wrote off here. There we go. So thank you. So this has been a wonderful week, and we still have events going on. So the math and computer science event. So thank you, Jason, who's a professor of computer science, for being here, because your event is still going on, and we have many other events going on still at this moment. But there's only so many hours in the day. We only have a week to run the expo, so the show must go on, or the expo must go on. So thank you all for being here with us. This is, of course, our closing ceremony, our award ceremony, where we celebrate the best of the best. And the person you will hear from today is one of the best we have here at Seton Hall. He's a member of our faculty, but he's also a member. He's a priest in the Archdiocese of Newark. He's a member of our priest community here at Seton Hall. He's an associate professor of systematic theology and the chair of the Department of Systematic Theology in the Immaculate Conception Seminary School of Theology. Father Joe Laracy, who I'm introducing, has a very interesting path to Seton Hall. He did a bachelor's of science in computer engineering, and he also minored in mathematics, and that's why he's qualified and he's here teaching in our computer science, our math and computer science department. He's also affiliated faculty there. He received his BS from the University of Illinois Urbana-Champaign. Then he went on to Massachusetts Institute of Technology, MIT, to work on his master's in engineering systems. And then from there, I guess God called you at that point there. He heard his vocation. And Father Joe joined the seminary here, Father Laracy. And he then went on to go all over the place, but mostly he was at the Pontifical Gregorian University, where he did his systematic theology doctorate, and in 2019 he got that. And he worked with Father Hefner, who is a well-regarded, well-renowned religion and science authority, who worked with Father Yaki, who was for 42 years our distinguished professor of physics here at Seton Hall University. Father Joe, since he's been here, he doesn't rest, as you'll come to understand when you listen to his presentation today. He's been a very strong proponent of the Catholic intellectual tradition. He is one of the co-PIs, co-principal investigators that commenced the Academy for Nature and Nurture that Dr. Suli Chang is the director of. And we have Mary somewhere also around here. And the Academy for Nature and Nurture is an interdisciplinary academy that looks at approaches for resilience, for determining resilience and in abuse and substance abuse matters. Father Joe is also the founder and currently director of the Father Yaki Academy for Theology and Science, which I'm part of both of those academies, by the way, with working with Father Joe and collaborating with him and others here. So as I said, we are going to be listening today to our keynote from one of the best members of our faculty here. So we're extremely fortunate and extremely happy to have you, Father Joe. Thanks for agreeing to do this. I promised him $1 million times 0, which is what I give all our speakers here at the university, internal speakers. So Father Joe, please earn your stipend.
Thank you very much, Jose. And thank you, Suli, and the entire Petersheim committee for this invitation. So I'm reminded of the words of Theodore Roosevelt. He said, people, perhaps we could say students in our context, don't care how much you know until they know how much you care. It was the middle of my sophomore year at the University of Illinois at Urbana-Champaign. I was a student in the Department of Electrical and Computer Engineering and working very hard to keep my head above water in the classroom while also working as a resident advisor, an RA, in the dorms. At the beginning of my freshman year, one of the deputy heads of the department told us that they only admit students who have demonstrated the ability in high school to succeed in the program. Yet in most cohorts, 40% of the students will leave within the first 2 years. Now, in my second year, I witnessed that attrition. Many talented students were changing their major and leaving the College of Engineering. I was intent on succeeding, aware that it meant a lot of the proverbial blood, sweat, and tears. However, after 3 semesters, I was feeling very worn down. In God's providence, a very interesting and unique elective in mathematics was being offered my second semester of sophomore year, entitled Mathematical Issues in National Security. The instructor was Professor Julian Palmore. Before I tell you about the impact that Professor Palmore had on me, I'd like to share a bit about him personally and professionally. Professor Palmore was a longtime professor of mathematics at the University of Illinois, a Navy veteran and lover of flight, who devoted his life to scholarship. Growing up in Baltimore, he discovered a love of movies, and thanks to weekend double and triple features, he could pay for those trips to the movies with just mere pocket change. He was particularly fond of science fiction pictures. By age 10, he had developed an interest in space flight, and in the early 1950s started a rocket club for like-minded students at the Baltimore Polytechnic Institute. In 1960, he won the American Rocket Society Award while studying physics at Cornell. After graduating from Cornell, Julian was assigned to NASA's Marshall Space Flight Center in Huntsville, Alabama, where he worked on systems analysis of ion rockets and participated in the Apollo program. Later, he worked as a test engineer on the first stage of the Saturn V launch vehicle. He left NASA in 1964 to pursue a master's degree at Princeton in aeronautical engineering, and in 1967, a PhD in astronomy from Yale University, and a second doctorate in 1973 in mathematics from UC Berkeley. In 1977, Professor Palmore moved with his wife and 2 children to Urbana, Illinois, where he could walk to the historic Mcnulty Hall to teach differential equations and probability to undergraduate and graduate students. His areas of research included dynamical systems theory as well as defense policy and international security. He retired from Illinois in 2018 after advising 12 PhD students and publishing over 100 articles and book chapters. Professor Palmore loved to travel, and he attended many conferences across the country and abroad, including at the Wilton Park facility in the UK. Within the US, his preferred mode of transportation was a Piper or a Cessna, and he would fly himself. Professor Palmore's course on mathematical issues in national security quickly became my favorite. He effortlessly covered a variety of mathematical topics to address a particular national security issue. For example, applying game theory, probability theory, and differential equations to study national missile defense. Professor Palmore encouraged us to pursue our own research interests and was always available to meet one-on-one with me or other students when we were encountering difficulties or just needed guidance. Prior to taking this class, I was beginning to lose confidence in my abilities and overall suitability for technical work. After the class, I had a renewed confidence and energy. Furthermore, I decided to take additional mathematics courses beyond what was required, choosing electives in areas such as advanced differential equations, number theory, and other topics. After 30 credits, I earned a minor in mathematics. I also applied for and received a teaching assistantship with Professor Fred Lamb, which was not uncommon for undergraduates in the Department of Physics. And I really owe that to the preparation I received from Professor Palmore. During my senior year, I decided to do an independent study research project with Professor Palmore and another professor in my home department, Professor Sanjay Patel, and this involved a hardware implementation of the RSA crypto system using VHDL with the objective of synthesizing and deploying the system on a field programmable gate array, FPGA. Professor Palmore encouraged me to apply for an NSF REU, the Research Experience for Undergraduates grant. Thankfully, I received that grant and was now being paid to do the research that I enjoyed. It was wonderful. I learned a great deal from that REU, across several areas of mathematics, elements of number theory, abstract algebra, cryptography, and issues with computational complexity. My research experience with Professor Palmore and others, such as Professor Johnson in the Department of Computer Science, a leader in object-oriented software engineering, especially design patterns and software architecture, convinced me of the need to continue my education after Illinois. Professor Palmore kindly wrote me a letter of recommendation, and I ultimately accepted an offer at MIT in their Interdisciplinary Engineering Systems graduate program with a research assistantship in the Complex Systems Research Lab. Looking back, if I had not taken that course with Professor Palmore during my sophomore year, I don't know where my journey would have taken me. Would I have persevered and completed my engineering degree? Would I have gone on to graduate school? Only God knows the answers to these types of questions, but I do know that Julian Palmore played a pivotal role. All of this leads me to some thoughts about the role of mentoring in higher education. A wise person once observed that education is not the filling of a pail, but the lighting of a fire. Mentors are precisely the ones who can light fires. Thus, mentoring is not incidental to academic life. I believe it's constitutive of the faculty vocation. In the current American academic environment, we're all aware of various pressures on faculty, such as the negative impacts of hyper-specialization and administrative overload. Then there are the endless meetings. Professors know that a faculty meeting is an event where minutes are kept and hours are lost. We may face a temptation to get drawn into academic politics. Here we must remember the words of Henry Kissinger that academic politics are so vicious precisely because the stakes are so small. Ultimately, there is institutional pressure to produce credentialed graduates without formation. I believe it is not enough to accomplish information transfer or skills acquisition, or even higher-level cognitive and professional competencies. As valuable as those are, we need to strive for personal formation. When I think about what Professor Palmore, what made him so effective as a mentor, was his intellectual seriousness, precision of thought, personal investment in students, attitude of encouragement, and the virtue of charity. What Professor Palmore and other mentors at Illinois, MIT, Seton Hall, the Pontifical North American College, and the Pontifical Gregorian University gave me was not reducible to content. They formed habits of mind and dispositions of character. Habits of mind and dispositions of character. Even negative experiences can contribute to one's formation. Many of us have encountered what might be called anti-mentors, individuals who, through lack of charity, negligence, disordered priorities, or malice, fail to exemplify the virtues expected of a true mentor. A detrimental thesis advisor, for example, may discourage rather than inspire, or treat students as means rather than ends. Yet such experiences are not without value. They sharpen our moral perception and provide a kind of inverse formation, teaching us concretely how not to act. In this way, even deficient mentors can contribute to the development of prudence, justice, and charity if we consciously resolve to become for others what we ourselves did not experience. When I speak of mentoring, I, of course, don't mean mandatory academic advising, which can be episodic and procedural, or teaching alone, which is necessarily content-focused, but sustained formation through intellectual friendship. If I may offer a Thomistic framing, it's about the formation of the intellect for seeking the truth and the will for seeking the good. Aquinas often wrote about the notion of habitus, from which we get the word habit. Mentoring should form stable dispositions, not just outputs. I believe that mentoring is how a university transmits not just knowledge, but a way of being an intellectual and a way of being a person. I must also note that my personal formation was not limited to academic mentors. I would be remiss if I failed to mention my scoutmaster in the Boy Scouts of America, Richard Wallers, a Christian man of many virtues, especially heroic patience. Along the way, parish priests like my pastor in Roseland, Monsignor Fimiani, and spiritual directors and priest mentors such as Bishop Hannafelt, Monsignor Swetland, Monsignor Riley, Monsignor McCarran, Monsignor Garino, Monsignor Powers, Father Costa, Father Clancy, Father Bonapane, Father Hafner, and so many other wonderful priests who played and continue to play an important role in my life. They helped to form not only my intellect, but my spiritual life and my sense of vocation. Their guidance complemented what I received in the classroom, in the laboratory, or the library, reminding me that true formation engages the whole person. At Seton Hall University, as a Catholic institution of higher learning, we acknowledge that the human person is relational and formable, and that formation occurs through encounter and accompaniment. A Catholic university is ordered toward integral formation. Therefore, mentoring is not optional, it's essential. As mentioned, mentoring should be a participation in the formation of people, ordered to truth, a kind of intellectual charity and a form of cooperation in human flourishing. How do we concretely do this? Surely it involves availability beyond minimal obligations, serious engagement with student thought, willingness to challenge, not just the firm, and attention to particular students, not abstractions. While advising manages progress, mentoring forms people. Expanding the horizon, while research produces outputs, mentoring produces not only future researchers, but future mentors. If I may frame it mathematically, mentoring can yield exponential growth. I believe that the deepest academic impact is not linear, but generational. And the same holds within the faculty itself. Senior faculty have a responsibility, not only to students, but to junior colleagues, whose formation in teaching, research, and service will shape the next generation of the university. Such mentoring is not merely professional onboarding, but a participation in the transmission of an intellectual and moral tradition. Senior faculty have an opportunity to concretely make new faculty a part of a university community. I've benefited from the example, guidance, and support of faculty like Professors J.T. Sackerman, Thomas Marlowe, Jose Lopez, Su-Li Chang, and others here at Seton Hall. Professor Julian Palmore made lasting contributions in dynamical systems theory, chaos, celestial mechanics, with a distinctive focus on how nonlinear systems can generate complex behavior and how such behavior can be computationally tractable. However, his legacy lives on not only in mathematics, computing, and astronomy, but in the lives that he touched. I believe that the measure of our academic lives is not only what we know or produce, but whom we form. In mentoring, we can take part in a work that outlasts us. I conclude with a verse from the book of the prophet Jeremiah, chapter 29, verse 11. For I know the plans I have for you, says the Lord, plans for welfare and not for evil, to give you a future and a hope. Thank you. I'm happy to take questions or receive comments if anyone would like to. We have microphones so those listening online can join us.
Questions? Any questions?
Father Joe, I really like the one you called mentoring. My understanding is a calling. We need to answer the calling.
Yes. Absolutely. There's definitely that vocational aspect.
Thank you, Father Laracy. I love the anti-mentor comment because I think all of us who have a PhD have an anti-mentor somewhere along the way.
Yeah.
But I wanted to ask, since we have a lot of students in the room, what makes a good mentee and how to be a good mentee, since we have a lot of students seeking and having mentors in the room.
Yeah, I guess the first step is to identify people that could be a potential mentor for you, and then to have a good degree of docility and receptivity to their experience, to their knowledge, and what they have to offer. I think that openness is critical, even when it challenges us. And none of us like to be challenged at any stage in our life, but I think a good mentor always needs at certain points to push, to challenge, to stretch those that we're accompanying. And the openness to that, I think, is key, in this case, on behalf of the students. Yeah, good question.
Not to open Dr. Farina's trauma from his anti-mentors, but since we have students in the room, interested in you just talking a little bit about how one deals with an anti-mentor, that when we don't have that person on the other end who is engaging in that vocation that you were talking about.
Yeah, that's a great question. It's very challenging. Sometimes it's a matter of just trying to exercise heroic patience and persevere. Other times, I think when we have certain class of anti-mentor, we need to try to disassociate, to separate ourselves from that, find another mentor. Like, for example, if it's a thesis advisor that's just not working out, to find another thesis advisor. But of course, this can be very complicated because of the implications. If the funding for the graduate student is coming from the advisor, and then breaking from them means loss of funding. So the devil's in the detail, and I think it's a matter of personal discernment, of deep reflection, and hopefully prayer about, like any relationship in our life, personal, professional, that is this somebody that I want to be in relationship with? And if there's a struggle in the relationship, can I be an instrument of healing and reconciliation? Perhaps if there was a misunderstanding, but we're aware that in some cases there are irreconcilable issues that require separation. So I think students should just be aware of that theoretical possibility, but that would be the most extreme case.
Any further questions?
Any questions from our students here? I'm sure many of you are here today, maybe all of you, because you've had a great experience of mentoring thus far.
How best to pair up a mentee with a mentor?
Wow, that's the million-dollar question. It's so personal, and I think sometimes God does the hard work for us. How did I get connected with Professor Palmore? I think it was just providence. I saw this kind of interesting math elective, and I said, let me try this out. And then that opened up all these doors, which I couldn't have anticipated. So maybe just to be open to the places that God leads us in life, and open to new experiences.
Actually, I'm not going to answer how could be the good mentee or mentor, but I'd like to share with you all that about 10 years ago, I published a paper in Nature Immunology talking about what is a good mentor, what is good mentee. I can put that link to everybody.
I'd love
share.
to read that, Suli. Thank you.
Yeah.
Any further questions? I'll get here first.
Hi, I'm Michelle. I'm a student here. I guess my question would be, because you had mentioned for a mentee, I have a mentor, so I know what that relationship looks like. I had the privilege of finding an amazing mentor. And I guess it's for anyone here that is a mentee. You had mentioned the idea of being open and receptive to the challenges that your mentor may present to you. Easier said than done as a mentee. So I guess my question to you would be, what happens if this challenge of needing to be open arises, but you, as a mentee, don't know how to receive it and be open about it? That's my question.
Yeah, good question. Thank you. I think it depends on the nature of the relationship with the mentor. In some cases, you can hopefully be very open and honest with the mentor about, how you're struggling with the feedback or the direction that he or she is given. If that might not be well received or maybe the best approach, maybe another trusted friend, whether it's another student or even another faculty member, with whom you have a good relationship to just run something by. Sometimes bringing in a trusted third party to process these things can be very helpful. And I hope in your experience at Seton Hall that there are those people, not just like the official mentor, so to speak, but other kind of trusted faculty members that you feel a trust, an openness, a confidence to engage with about these personal issues.
My name is Mary Landrio. I'm a social work professor, and at the risk of embarrassing one of my colleagues, we have 18, or actually maybe even more than that, of our seniors who were able to do their research and present out front before disclosing ceremony, and I think that's a direct result of the mentorship from our program director, Dawn Apgar, who not only is their professor, but is engaging them in statewide conferences. We're going to Atlantic City in the morning and Sunday, and really giving the students opportunities far beyond the classroom. So I just wanted to acknowledge that.
One thing that I wanted to bring up, and thank you, I appreciate it, is also, I think sometimes mentorship, it's like the mentor is the giver and the mentee is the receiver. And I think how it's important to acknowledge that in mentorship, you get as much out of it as the mentor. I mean, the student, I learn every day from the students. So if I'm serving as being a mentor, I'm learning as well. And I think that reciprocal relationship and the learning that goes both ways is sometimes something that's not discussed. And I was curious, in your conversation, you talked about the people who have impacted you. Have you ever had those conversations? I'm sure you impacted them as well.
Thank you. What you said is absolutely true, and I think I have talked to some of them about that, but I probably haven't done that enough. Yeah, it's a great insight. It really is.
So, Father Joe, thank you. You always never cease to amaze me, your presentations, the way your mind works. So I have one question. So this has been a wonderful week. What we heard earlier in this week, Monsignor Riley talked about how he went into the church and found his calling, his vocation there. I've had similar experience, but mine was not in a church. It was in a lab, in a physics lab, and where I found my place, my vocation, my calling. In your case, you seem to have found it in the lab, but also in the church. Could you talk a little bit about that for students that are discerning and trying to understand kind of where their place is, where their calling is, where their vocation is?
Yeah, thank you. That's a great question, Dr. Lopez. Yeah, for me, my vocation to the priesthood was something that I think God's call was always present, And I can look back at times in my life where there were signs of that. One striking moment was when I had a great reading and writing teacher in 8th grade. They had us basically take 2 English courses in 8th grade, like a literature course and a reading and writing, which was fantastic. And at the end of the reading and writing course, the teacher said, okay, I want you to write a letter to yourself. And she gave us prompts to help us with that, which were really good, well crafted. And she said, write this letter to yourself, and I'm going to deliver it to you when you graduate high school. And I did that, and I got the letter at the end of high school. And one of the things I had written in 8th grade, which I had forgotten about as a 12th grader, was this sense that, maybe God is calling me to be a priest. I had kind of formulated my own plans and involving marriage and family life. And anyway, that struck me. And then when I was at the University of Illinois, they have a great Newman Center, really fantastic, not just with the pastoral ministry piece, but also intellectual formation. They had an institute there called the John Henry Newman Institute for Catholic Thought. And that was a concrete way that students could take courses in Catholic theology at a public university and get credit because all of the faculty of the institute were adjunct professors in the Department of Religion at the University of Illinois. And so it was really a great arrangement. It was a win-win. And in that context, taking those electives, going deeper with my faith, I eventually heard the call of the Lord, and concretely it happened that I was taking this course. It was just Introduction to Catholicism. It was taught by a brilliant theologian, and he was going through the Catechism and the 7 sacraments. And he got to the Sacrament of Reconciliation, and it struck me that, well, I was going to Mass, I wasn't going to confession, and that needed to be a part of my life. And by the grace of God, I returned to confession, and after that, God just started doing so many amazing things in my life, including that clearer call to the priesthood, which led me, as you mentioned at the beginning, to entering seminary in, I guess, in 2007, and the rest is history. But yeah, God, when God wants you for something, whether it's a state of life or a particular calling within a state, I think he keeps knocking. And I think the invitation to us is to just to be open and to trust that what God wills for us is not just one good plan among many, but the best plan, even if we can't see where the road will lead us.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Father Laracy. Thank Father Laracy for his keynote. So this week we've seen a lot of callings and a lot of wonderful works. So Dr. Tall will now move us. He's our Master of Ceremonies. So Ed.
Laracy, thank you for that talk. That was, by the way, that was very, it stirred a lot of thoughts in my mind, for sure, for sure. Okay. So at this point in the program now, this is like one of my favorite parts is where we get to hear from students who have presented during Petersheim week. And the students that you're about to hear from today are students who presented in these multiple events that we've had throughout the week. And it's usually the let's say the task of the event organizer to identify what they believe are some outstanding presentations, outstanding posters, outstanding works, whatever it is that the students have done. And they report those in to us, the Petersheim committee, and then we get together and we have this moment here where we can acknowledge those students who just have caught someone's eye enough to, attain that level of distinction, right? And on top of that, they are also all awardees of the Student Travel Award. The Student Travel Award that these students are about to receive today is money that will be, they can use so that they can present their works, whatever it is they're doing outside of Seton Hall. So it'll really help defray that cost. It's good for, a whole year. They can, from now until another year from now, they can take that opportunity to present their works outside of here. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to call you by name, and I'm going to ask you to just come up to the front. I will hand you your certificate, but I'm going to ask you to line up and stay up front here until all the names have been called, because what I want to do after that is I want to have you just give us a little brief description about, what you have done, okay? So when I call your name, please come up to the front. This is in no particular order. There's no rank. There's no alphabetical order to this. So if I mispronounce your name really bad, just be, kind of heads up that it's probably what I meant to say, and you can correct me later for sure. Okay. So I'm going to start. Okay, Simone Taylor, are you here? Next one, Marcia Philemon. Marcia Philemon here? Good. Next one is Bryson Fingston, who is not here, but in his place, is his ambassador. Dr. Jason Heeman, here.
His mentor.
I need the back sheet. The back 3 pages. Next student, Musab Siddiqui. Not here, okay. I know some students could not come. They get short notice because they can have an event, just yesterday, and they had plans or something else going on. And actually, this event's going on right now, so some of the students, there's one student who I just picked up the email as I was sitting up there, so I'll call her at the end, and hopefully she made it here. The next student is Edian Lee. Edian Lee.
Yeah, I'll pick up on Musab. Yeah,
Okay.
we get to it.
All right, next one is you got Musabs? Okay, all right, so Musab, he's going to take for Musab.
Okay.
Next is Akshay Patel. Next one, this is a 3-person team here. So Jamil Albana, Garrett Yohananov, and Jay Jethva. Next is Kenneth Tomkovich, who could not be here, but accepting in his place was an undergraduate who worked with him, Matthew Leinfuss, will accept. Next is a 2-person team. This is Stefan Gregory and Amar Mujtaba. Stefan and Amar could not come today, so we'll hold on to it for them. Next person is Leo Chu, and this is going to be accepted by Dr. Lisa Rose-Wiles. Next person is Weifei Wang. Weifei Wang? Next is Akash Aramangam. The next work is a 4-person team it was Matthew Wilson, Gianna Sanchez, Sadie Parsons, and Michael Voronsky. Are any of you here? This was a late addition, so another later addition was Alyssa Housley and Gabriella de Guzman. And the one that I mentioned before that just came in, Kayla Wagner, or Wagner. I don't know if you pronounce it as a V. Okay, well, their event is probably still going on right now, so that's why she's not here. But her mentor emailed me about 15 minutes ago. So, as I was saying before, these are rolling in even as we carry on. So, congratulations to all of you. As I mentioned before, you all have distinctive. Yes, sir. So you all have distinctive works, and what I'm inviting you to do right now is we're going to pass this microphone down, each pass to each other, and you're going to spend 30 seconds summarizing what you did, what you learned, what you did. It's not about the accuracy of the data, it's about what's the overall message from what you have done.
Hi everyone, my name is Simone. I'm a senior majoring in social work and minoring in nonprofit studies. And my social policy poster was on LGBTQ plus youth ensuring safety through affirming foster care screening and placement policies. I chose this issue because many child welfare agencies still lack standardized LGBTQ plus youth affirming screening and placement policies. And as a result, many queer youth are in homes that are unsafe and they're being abused, and it kind of creates conditions that are just unsafe for them. And some of the policies that I initiated in this, my policy poster, was mandating SOGI training. So SOGI training is sexual orientation and gender identity training. And basically it helps parents or foster parents have affirming practices such as understanding pronouns, understanding their identity, and stuff like that. So this training is only mandated in 5 states. So one of the policy initiatives that I wanted to initiate was mandating in all states. And this is one of the policies that I included in one of my poster policy. Thank you.
Okay. Hi everyone, my name's Alyssa. I'm a senior psychology major, and so my project was on looking at cognitive differences in individuals who have concussion and how that relates to decision making. And so we did that using functional neuroimaging, computational modeling, and some behavioral tasks. And so overall, we didn't really see like these strong behavioral differences between these groups, between individuals who had concussions and those who didn't, but we did see some like interesting neural differences we're still trying to figure out. But overall, my biggest takeaway from doing this work is that I really want to go into research as a field. So.
My name is Gabriella. I am a senior psychology major and an incoming medical student. My research was around brainstem-mediated reflexes in individuals with a history of concussion. And what we saw overall is that it takes individuals with a concussion history longer to respond to auditory stimulus. And this could be really important in developing objective biomarkers for concussion severity in the future rather than relying on self-report in adolescents and young adults. And I would say my big takeaway from this research was the impact that research and academia can make in clinical environments and in creating better tools for our youth.
Hello everyone, my name is Wenfei Huang and I'm a PhD in molecular bioscience and an early career investigator in Institute of Neuroimmunopharmacology. I have 2 presentations in IIP Symposium. So the first study is about the impact of ethanol or alcohol exposure on glioblastoma, which is a highly aggressive malignant tumor, brain tumor. So we use integrated network analysis to show that ethanol can actually promote glioblastoma progression based on the current literature findings in the Kaiser knowledge base, as well as the transdermic data from the glioblastoma patients, which is retrieved from the Cancer Genome Atlas. And the second study is about the ethanol-induced spleen atrophy. So we use a rodent model. So despite of the same ethanol dose, we observe like a highly inter-individual variability in the spleen atrophy severity. So we use a single cell RNA analysis to understand the cellular and molecular mechanism underlying this inter-individual variability. So we found like the different immune cell types, especially natural killer cells, play a key role in this spleen atrophy after ethanol exposure. Thank you.
Well, I am obviously not Leo. And the reason Leo is not here today is because he is at an acceptance reception at UC San Francisco School of Medicine as a newly accepted medical student. I can tell you about his research, though. He did archival research, which is looking at primary sources like letters and policies and newspapers and so on, into the yellow fever outbreaks of 1795 and 1798 in New York City, which really hit hard in the poorer areas of Southeast Manhattan. And one of the things that he did that was very clever, one of his principal figures that he identified was actually Richard Bailey, who was the father of Elizabeth Ann Seton, who helped to pull together all the disparate theories about what was causing this outbreak and how to treat it and so on. And he contrasted that to the response to the COVID-19 outbreak, which most of us still remember, and how there wasn't the kind of necessary cooperation. There was instead partisanship and disputes and so on. So he made a really good parallel in terms of not just the archival research, but how applicable it was today.
Hello everyone, my name is Akshay Patel. I am a second-year PhD student in molecular bioscience. We created a non-cytotoxic in vitro model for type 2 diabetes study for osteogenesis and angiogenesis. In the lab, that was my preliminary data for my project, so I'm gonna do 3D bone organoid in the lab and also gonna look at the angiogenesis and osteogenesis marker and how diabetes impair the regeneration of the bones specifically. So that's what we did. Thank you.
Hey everyone, my name is Endian Li. Third year of physics and mathematics major. And my first research is about how can we create a micro-exonerator based on the fiber ring optic lineups. And then our group was able to use 3D pointer to point out the optical alignments, optical equipments for the 3D point, the micro-exonerator project. And my second project is how ideal glass would break based on different shearing force and stress. And we create a graph based on when it's a first contact point, when will the contact point change, and when depends on how the ideal glass, the crystal functions. We can create different graphs based on that. Yes.
I'm Jason Heeman, presenting or accepting on behalf of my research student, Bryson Finkston. He's been just a fantastic collaborator to work with over the past couple of years. This particular project was about visualizing the relationships between problems in a class of very difficult problems and how to debug their solutions. And I'm presenting because he can't be here today because he's presenting some of the same work in New Orleans at a symposium called Undergraduate Research to PhD, and I think that title pretty much says it.
Hi everyone, I'm not Kenny, but I'll do my best to do his project justice. So over this entire semester I've been helping Kenny with it, and I've been blown away with the work he's done. So what we did, we focused on isolating proteins from extracellular vesicles using MALDI-TOF mass spec. And MALDI-TOF is a green and rapid alternative to some of the other methods out there. And one of the great things about EVs is that they can be really key in disease biomarkers. So in the future, this could be a great way to diagnose potential cancer risk factors and other things from just like your routine blood work. And using our new signature peptide approach and stage tip fractionation, we were able to identify some proteins both from our samples and the models. So it's been really awesome.
Hi everyone, my name is Jamil. I'm a sophomore in the biology major. I'll be speaking on behalf of our 3-person team of Garrett and Jay, who are juniors in the biology major. Our research focused on discovering new sources of antibiotics from soil bacteria. We extracted bacterial strains from soil samples and screened them against escape pathogens, bacteria that are known or associated with hospital infections. From there, we extracted and analyzed the DNA to begin identifying the genetic basis for their antibiotic production. Looking forward, we hope to identify the specific gene that causes that antibiotic production and insert it into a plasmid to mass produce the antibiotic and characterize the structure of the antibiotic compound that we are working with. From there, we would determine if it is an antibiotic that already exists or if it's a completely new and novel type of antibiotic. Either way, our follow-up steps would play a large role in addressing the growing global crisis of antibiotic resistance. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Akash Arumagam, and I'm in the 4+3 BSMD program at Seton Hall. I'm also in the Institute of Neuroimmune Pharmacology, and I'm an early career investigator there. I also had 2 different projects. The first project involved an in silico analysis of how ethanol is inducing glioblastoma progression and the molecules that are involved in this pathway. And through this, I found that ADAM17 is a key molecule that helps and induces glioblastoma progression through the induction of ethanol. My second project involved an in vitro study of human skin cells, and it also looked at ethanol-induced stress in the human skin cells and a potential therapeutic target being cold plasma that could reverse the effects of ethanol and its induced stress in these skin cells for helping heal wounds. Thank you.
Hello, everyone. My name is Marsha Philemon. I'm a doctoral student in the Higher Education Leadership Program. I'm actually at the end of my journey. I will be graduating in May, so I'm very excited. But when you look at statistics, 70% of our college presidents are male, 30% are women. When you look further, 15% are women of color, and then less than 5 are Black women. So my study focused on Black women presidents at predominantly white institutions. So in this study, I went in focusing on how did they shatter glass ceilings to ascend to presidency, and what recommendations do they have for institutions to build the numbers that we see? Well, surprisingly, the presidents ascended. They navigated barriers, and some of the barriers that came up were concrete ceiling, glass cliff. Glass ceiling did come up, but there was an extensive amount of recommendations for institutions to build the number of Black women at predominantly white institutions. So I had the honor of interviewing 13 women. I learned how they navigated, or what were the pathways to the presidency, what were the barriers they navigated, and then finally the recommendations for institutions. Thank you.
Thank you all. All right, so let's give them all one big round of applause as they return to their seats. So I have another person to introduce you to. Many of you know her already, Dr. Suli Chang. Dr. Chang is a distinguished university research professor here. She is the director of the Institute of Neuroimmune Pharmacology. She is also Petersheim co-chair, and so with her and Dr. Lopez, they work very hard, especially during this time of year to, help put this all together. It's a huge, huge project that, takes many people to do, but their leadership really helps to bring this together. And so I invite Dr. Chang to come for her closing remarks. And you want to use your computer? Okay.
Hi, good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for joining us at this 2026 Petersheim Academic Exposition closing ceremony, as we bring to a close of a remarkable celebration of 30th anniversary of Expo at Seton Hall University. It has truly been a vibrant and inspiring celebration, a moment to honor outstanding presentation across a wide range of disciplines, including English, physics, mathematics, chemistry, biochemistry, psychology, biology, neuroscience, computer science, immunology, pharmacology, nursing, law, sociology, finance, library sciences and education, and vocation and servant leadership, and mission and ministry. Did I miss anyone? Together, so my talk is a bit longer, I list everyone. Together, this presentation reflects the excellence and the impact of research at Seton Hall University, spanning undergraduate, graduate student, postdoctoral scholar, faculty members, and staff scientists. Many years ago, when I announced my decision to accept an assistant professor at Seton Hall University, almost everyone responds in the same way. They have a great basketball team. Often followed by, you must be a basketball fan. And during those conversations, I was not particularly excited. Especially remember my brothers, I have 4 brothers, constant playing basketball, and my father always comment on how quickly their sports shoes wore out. 3 weeks a pair of shoes. At that time, I did not really imagine that my work at Seton Hall University would have anything connect to basketball at all. But to my surprise, I later met Dr. Petersheim in the spring of 1996. He told me that at Seton Hall University, we celebrate many things, especially basketball, but we did not have a true celebration of scholarship. That insight stayed with me. In his view, scholarship deserved to stand proudly alongside athletics, basketball, in the life of university, in the life of Seton Hall University. Then he invited me to participate in the exposition. I initially misunderstood him. I thought that he was asking me to give a talk, which is, I'm delighted to give a talk, give a lecture. And yes, I did give a lecture. And he did not correct me. Instead, he kindly arranged 30, 40 chemistry students to attend my lecture, listen to me talk about using fast immunoreactivity to identify sites of action in the brain of interleukin-1 beta. And at that moment, I really appreciate when I realized that Dr. Petersheim was a warm and generous person, deeply committed to student and scholarship. Looking back, that moment reminds me of what Exposition, with just a new, Exposition was grown to represent today. A community that celebrates discovery, mentorship, and formation of students through research. Over the year, the Expo has continued to grow. What began with just a few dedicated faculty and now evolved into a large, dynamic, campus-wide celebration of scholarship. And interestingly, the connection of a basketball returned in 2021. We learned that the Big East Conference would include an undergraduate poster symposium. I remember I was smiling. It felt as though that Expo come full cycle once again, intersecting with world of basketball, but now in a new and very meaningful way through scholarship. Since then, our student has gone well, beyond Seton Hall, beyond Expo, each year a selected team represents Seton Hall at the Big East undergraduate research poster symposium, earning top honors, including the silver medal and then the category award. Our student has also been recognized at other regional venues, including Independent College University in New Jersey, ICUNJ, where multiple awardees has come from Seton Hall. This accomplishment reminds us that Expo is not an endpoint, it is a beginning. And so by counting this achievement beyond Expo and Seton Hall University, I would like to say congratulations to all the, once again, to all the recipients of the 2026 Petersheim Academic Exposition Student Traveling Award. I hope you receive this recognition as a calling to go beyond Seton Hall University, sharing your research more broadly, engage with wider scholarly and professional communities, and continue to advance your work through presentation at external conferences. This is your opportunity to take what you have begun here and bring it into conversation with broader world of scholarship. May this moment inspire you not only to celebrate what you have accomplished here, but also to envision how far your work can go, and then the impact it can make beyond the campus. I would also like to briefly reflect on something I experienced over the past few days. In addition to attending a section talking about how faculty and parents can partner in support student success, I listened carefully as parents share their hope for their children and education at Seton Hall. They spoke about the internship, they spoke about the future opportunity. I was listening to that, and then I said, what struck me was that really that those parents, they don't realize Expo itself is already part of their preparation. I really thanks for Sandra to take me to that section, to listen to what parents say. Looks like our parents didn't know much about Expo, so please, all the recipients, talk to your parents about Expo. 1 week's celebration for the research, prepare our students, compete for the internship, compete for the future opportunity, compete for the medical school admission. Expo is a platform where students develop the skills, confidence, and experience needed to pursue all those opportunities. Over the past few days, I also had opportunities to speak with students, parents, and visitors. I actually talked to one of the students. Do you know about Expo? They said, not quite. I said, why don't you go to see this link? And then so she's seeing the link, you mean the opening ceremony. And then after a few minutes, she said, yeah, I sent this out to all my students. So please tell everybody about Expo. So Expo is more than a place to present information. It is a space where knowledge is exchanged, understanding is deepened, and the insight beginning to take place in this way. Expo play a growing important role in students' education at Seton Hall, and serving as a vital co-curricular experience that integrate classroom learning with research and then prepare them for the future achievement. As we celebrate the closing of our 30th anniversary, I would also like to highlight how Expo continues to grow in its reach and impact. We are not only engaging faculty and students, but also strengthening. We hope that we are connecting with the family and alumni. In this way, Expo will become something that stays with our students even after they graduate, and a lasting bridge that will connect student, family, faculty, and then broaden Seton Hall community. So after talking about this a little bit serious thinking, I'd like to express my sincere gratitude. First, congratulations again to all students presenting, not only the award recipient, all students. Thank you for sharing your research, your curiosity, your journey, and your achievement with us. Thank you so much. To our faculty researchers, thank you for your continuous dedication to mentoring students while advancing your own scholarly work and presenting to us this during the expo. And second, my heartfelt thanks go to 2026 Petersheim Academic Exposition Committee. Since our kickoff in last December, this incredible team of the student, faculty, administrator, and staff has worked very diligently, tirelessly, meeting bi-weekly in the beginning, and then weekly as the expo approached. Your dedication, collaboration, and patience make this event possible. And I thank you so much on behalf of Dr. Lopez and myself. Third, we extend our sincere gratitude to Interim Provost Eric Laracy and the Office of the Senior Vice President, Monica Bennett, the Division of Student Service, and the Institute of Neuroimmune Pharmacology for their generous support. The success of every year's expo, this year's expo, was made possible through their continuous commitment. Fourth, thank you to our filming and recording team of the TLTC for capturing the spirit of the expo so beautifully. Your work has created a lasting record of this experience, one that reflects the voice, journey, and achievement of our students. By the way, if you have not viewed the 30th year's expo video produced by our TLTC, I encourage you to really look at it. Fifth, I would like to thank our university advancement, and especially Central for their important role as a part of our Expo subcommittee, helping to share the story of Expo with the faculty, family, alumni, and the broader community. Our goal is fostering their engagement and support, and ensuring that spirit of our Expo continue with our students even after they graduate and into the new chapter of their growth. And a special thank you also to the print shop team. They have a very small group, and then they answer to our last minute calling, particularly when Dr. Lopez don't give us his bio sketch soon enough. We only give him the 2 days to produce our program book. Thank you so much. Of course, they produce all those excellent poster program and the material reflect the excellence of this event. With all this, allow me officially close my remark by once again congratulating all of us, including me. And thank you everyone who made the 2026 Petersheim Academic Exposition 30th anniversary celebration such an extraordinary and memorable success. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Chang. Wonderful closing statement. Okay, so last thing we want to do, but not least, I don't think it would be, something would be missing if we didn't do this. If Reverend Dr. Pritchett couldn't lead us in a closing prayer, and from where he is right there, we can hear you. So, Reverend?
It looks live. You know, I was sitting here, I was tempted to, I was thinking about Moses in the book of Exodus, and I was going to say, Moses, take off your shoes. You're on holy ground. I'm looking down on all of you, but I'm not going to go dramatic. I hope you can smile at that one. Let us open our hearts and close our eyes for a brief moment of prayer. Heavenly Father, we thank you for Seton Hall University and the vision in 1856 that created this space. And we would trust that all of these students studying science and social science, physical science, etc., that as they pass through this place, may they be more enlightened, if you would, for having a close encounter with you. We should learn how to see you in all that we do, whether we look at test tubes, microscopes, or through the lens of social policy. For we know that if not, the social science and science establishment can be misused by those who would abuse. But we would pray that if we keep our eyes focused upon you, that what we do and the outcomes of it will be used to advance mankind and our relations with one another. So bless us all, bless Seton Hall, bless the Academic Expo. As we go forward in your name, we give this prayer, amen. Thank you all for coming.
So that concludes our ceremony. So to my understanding, there are refreshments outside here, so please let us continue to converse and mingle. Thank you all for coming.
The ones that work.
Okay, I'll just...